Hey, so this is a quick little video detailing the Switch 1 Pro controller, Switch 2 Pro controller, and the 8BitDo Pro 2 controller. So I just want to go over some of these controllers, just to give you a bit more of an idea of which controller you should get if you're thinking of getting the Switch 2 Pro controller. But yeah, let's go over some controllers. So this is the regular Switch 1 Pro controller. So I did shell swap this controller, but it is an OEM controller. It's actually an actual Switch 1 Pro controller, but I did just shell swap it. So that means that I just took it apart, replaced the shells, and I also replaced the buttons. But it is originally a Switch 1 Pro controller. So the Switch 1 Pro controller, of course, has the ZL, ZR, L, and R. These are the original buttons. This is actually on the controller, so I did not switch that out. These buttons I did switch out. However, the switches for the buttons are the same. And then the joysticks and the D-pad are also the same. I'm just going to zoom in a little. Yeah, sorry, there's like some dust accumulated on this controller. It has seen a lot of use. But yeah, this is the Switch 1 Pro controller. I'd say that it feels thicker, especially the handles. Where you hold it, it does feel like a thick controller to hold. It is pretty big. Now, let's go for the Switch 2 Pro controller, especially if you want to get an upgrade for the Switch 2. It does come with some benefits. So first, there is this slot for you to insert a headset slash headphones into. And then the C button for you to chat. The joysticks feel a lot smoother. They are significantly smoother. Let's go back to the Switch 1 Pro controller so you can see. Like, there is some resistance as I'm rolling it. Granted, it has seen a lot of use, hence there's a lot of dust under it. But it is not because of the use that there's more resistance, it's just because of how it was designed. Like, this right one is also smooth. This one feels less smooth. And let's see about the button presses. Now I'll go back to the Switch 2 Pro controller. It is just really, really smooth. It glides really easily. A lot of people online also note that these joysticks, analog sticks, are also really smooth. The D-pad feels really nice too. Like, this one doesn't feel as nice to press down, especially if you're doing like circular motions. This could be useful if you're playing a fighting game like Street Fighter, where you would like to prefer to use the D-pad, but it feels clickier, I want to say. It also feels like it's a little bit concave down the middle. So these left, right, up, down, they are all raised in comparison to the middle. There's just like a slight little dip here. This one also has a dip, but it just feels smoother. How I would describe this dip is that it is very noticeable. Let me see if I can zoom in. So, as best as I can try. Yeah, you can see that it's like dipping right in the middle. And then this was the Switch 2. It does also dip, but it feels like less of an incline to the buttons. Hopefully that makes sense, but it feels like it isn't as pronounced. Or not that, it just feels like there's less of a drastic change. But I do like this D-pad. It feels smoother, like the switches for the D-pad. It just feels like there's less resistance, which I like. You can also kind of hear the resistance. Hopefully. Yeah, this just feels smoother. Also, let's go for the button presses. Oh, actually, yeah, button presses. I'm going to zoom in on that. Zoom out a little slightly. So the buttons feel springier to me. Like, for me, if I'm using these buttons, they feel like there's less, I forgot the term, but you have to press it less into the controller. Like, I forgot what it's called. It's like, for this, you have to press slightly more to go down. For this one, you press less. I think it's activation. So this one has less activation. So you just like press it slightly, and then you get the input. This one is not a lot of activation that you have to go through, but it has to be slightly more for you to get the input. But yeah, because these buttons are slightly shorter, or at least to me it feels slightly shorter. It could be also the springs. But you have to press less to get the input. So these are definitely springier. So I would recommend the Switch 2 Pro Controller over the Switch 1 Pro Controller if you're playing a button mashing game, such as Donkey Kong Bonanza, and you really want to press buttons repeatedly over and over again. The Switch 2 Pro Controller definitely is a plus over the Switch 1 Pro Controller in terms of that. Also, these just glide so smoothly. So if you're playing like a fighting game, or an intensive game like Fortnite, and you just like use these buttons a lot, these just feel more comfortable. Just like walking around, running around, checking out your surroundings, pushing these buttons for Donkey Kong Bonanza, these just feel a lot springier. And also, I want to note that for the Switch 1 Pro Controller, these buttons are all basically clicky buttons. For the plus and the minus button, they are not like the clicky buttons on the Switch 1, but these are actually raised now. So you don't have to... it's kind of weird to describe, but for this, you have to press into the controller, basically. For these are raised over the controller, so you don't have to press with as much force as before. You can just easily press them now. Granted, it wasn't much force before, but these just make it even easier to use. I don't want to press the home because that will wake my Switch up. But these buttons also feel less clicky than the Switch 1 Pro. Like, hopefully you can hear that clicking sound. But these just feel smoother to press in. Same for the home, but I just don't want to press it. You also have the ZLZR L and R. Let's go back to Switch 1. Okay, so I'm noticing some differences here. Let's go back. These require slightly more activation as well. So you have to press them slightly more down to activate them. At least it seems to me. These are clicky. The ZL and ZR are clicky on the Switch 1 Pro. These also require more activation on the Switch 1 Pro. Yeah, these require less activation. These also have GL and GR buttons. I have not used them yet. I honestly don't know what they are used for. I assume macros, but I'm not fully sure, so don't take me on that. These have GL and GR buttons around the back of the controller. I do not know what these do. This one does not have GL, GR buttons. But yeah, I would say that the Switch 2 Pro Controller is definitely an upgrade over the Switch 1 Pro Controller. Again, I feel like this is a narrower profile. It doesn't feel as big in terms of the handles. This one just feels bigger to hold. Like, it feels like it takes up more space, is what I'm trying to say. They look very, very similar, but I do want to say that the handle on the Switch 1 Pro seems bigger than the handle on the Switch 2 Pro. Like, they basically occupy similar dimensions. I do think that the Switch 2 Pro controller is slightly narrower in terms of the handle size, so it feels slightly smaller. It doesn't take up as much space in my hands to hold. This one takes up more space. But yeah, this one has a narrow profile. I do also want to note on the Switch 2 Pro that these buttons, like you can see here, right on top of the B, right below the A, the X one is down here. It's not really noticeable on camera, but you can kind of see a line. And the Y has this line right over here. These buttons came like that right out of the box. So these could be stress marks on the buttons, or they could be from the injection. But yeah, these buttons do noticeably have some stress marks or injection marks on them. It does not matter too much to me. However, if it does matter to you, you could just disassemble the controller and then swap these buttons out if you locate replacement buttons. Like for me, Switch 1 Pro Controller, there were some shell kits available, so I just replaced the shell and the buttons. This is like my favorite Switch 1 Pro Controller. I do own several, but this one's my favorite. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But yeah, you can find some kits online that will give you a shell, then you can replace the buttons. I have not disassembled the Switch 2 Pro Controller before. I do not know how hard or easy it is. It looks harder to disassemble, so I'm not even fully sure if you could disassemble it easily. But if these buttons really bother you, you could just change them if you have the time or the money to get someone else to do it. But yeah, I do want to note that these buttons do have some lines on them. Like the Y has a line right down there. The B also has a line right up there. A is down there. X is down there. It's not too noticeable on camera. If you look far enough away from it in person, you won't really notice it either. But I do want to note that. Also, I really like how they did the Switch 2 Pro Controller. Like, it looks like it is black, but you can also see specks of silvery, glittery dots, I guess. Like, when you get this controller, you can see like specks of silver on it. This isn't dust. This is like the actual like specks on the controller, which isn't too noticeable on camera. Well, like some of this is dust from my recent use, but you can kind of see how it has like silvery glitter on the black. So it's not like a pure black. There are some nice specks. It looks a lot better in person. Oh, I forgot to note, this is a really important difference in the Switch 2 Pro controller. So this one is like a smooth plastic feel. So yeah, it's like a smooth plastic, just the body of the controller. This one feels kind of like matte plastic, or like matte card sleeves. Matte card sleeves are basically the only thing that I have a fair comparison to say I know what matte feels like. But if you play card games, this feels like a matte card sleeve. Could be other matte finishes as well, but I do not know much about other matte finishes. But this feels not like glossy, but it feels like a matte finish when you're holding your hands. So there's like less slip. I do want to note that if you are getting Pokemon Legends ZA, you should probably get an 8-bit Do controller. You can use any controller with turbo. I do have some extra 8-bit Do controllers laying around from other usage. But I do have this, for example, 8-bit Do Pro 2. So the buttons are pretty nice. But if you are getting a new controller, especially one with turbo, you aren't too concerned about the buttons. If you are getting Pokemon Legends ZA, then you can easily shiny hunt, and you can also easily get a bunch of battles automatically to get the 1000 battle mission by using a turbo controller with a rubber band. So let's go over shiny hunting. So basically, I just take a rubber band, put it onto this left analog stick, pull down, push it like pull it like right behind the controller, and then boom, I have like downward movement on this controller. And you can also set this controller to turbo with the Ultimate Software app. So I can do hold down A, press star, and then this light will start flickering. So this will flicker to indicate that you have at least one turbo button on. So to shiny hunt in ZA, one of the easiest methods to do is to bench reset. So you go to a bench, press A, and then it will change the course of time of day from day to night and night to day. So you do that to reset the time, but you also reset all spawns in the game. And when you reset all spawns in the game, then you basically re-roll over and over again for shiny Pokemon. However, you also have to go towards the bench after each reset. So you have the A that can turbo, and then you have to hold down. Usually I do this with rubber band, and then I can just AFK shiny hunt for a few hours. Honestly, a turbo controller of any kind will do you well, but I would say that for me, I like this Pro controller, the Pro 2 from 8-bit Do, because the position is just easy for me to use a rubber band, hold it down, just wrap it around the controller, and then push it around top. So I'll show you how I do that again. So you take the rubber band, put it right on the left analog stick, then wrap it, sorry, the camera angle, wrap it right behind the controller. Okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, that is a better camera angle. So I wrap it right behind the controller. And then this one will hold the L stick down. This does not interfere with any of the other buttons. Like, it is slightly over the D-pad, it is slightly over this button, but it's not like pressing it down, I want to say. But even then, I'm not like setting this to anything. Granted, it's not pressed down. But yeah, you can just easily push a rubber band over the Pro 2 controller. There are also other 8BitDo controllers, but I just had this one readily available. It was like right on my desk, so I'm using this one. But I do recommend any controller with turbo. If you do get an 8BitDo Pro 2 controller, you can just use a rubber band. Other controllers, I'm sure that you can also use rubber bands for. But I find that this profile is just really easy to use a rubber band for. But basically, this can easily turbo. So you can just AFK Shiny Hunt. You can do your 1,000 battles really easily. As long as you can also, I forgot how I did it before. I'm just like trying to remember. Oh, I remember now. So let's say you want to do the 1,000 battles. So what I did was I just kind of put the rubber band over the ZL button, twisted it, put it on the right analog, or like the right handle. This should down press the ZL button, so you will automatically lock onto your opponent. And then as long as you turbo the A button, then you can do like the 1,000 battles really easily. This controller I also find is really easy for that. You can just easily down press ZL and then turbo the A to do your 1,000 battles for unlocking the shiny charm. But yeah, I really like this controller for shiny hunting and doing the AFK battles. But granted, you can get any turbo controller you want. This controller is definitely an upgrade over the Switch 1 Pro controller. I would say that this one is really, really buttery smooth in case you want to play some intensive games or real-time games. Games where you compete, I would say this controller is really good. But even if you aren't competing, this controller is just more comfortable to use. But it will definitely be a lot noticeable if you're playing something like Fortnite or fighting games. The D-pad feels better to me. These analog sticks feel more smooth. And I feel like there's less activation for you to get your inputs in on all of the buttons. The minus and plus are raised above the controller, so I like that. But yeah, you could also assign things to GLGR, I believe, but I have not used them yet, so I don't fully know. There is also the chat, in case you want to plug in some headphones or a headset, then talk with your friends. But yeah, this is a nice controller. I would say that you shouldn't really need this controller if you already have the Switch 1 Pro. You don't really need it, but it is really, really nice. It is really comfortable to use. I would use this for button mashing games, Fortnite. But yeah, this is a really nice controller. Switch 1 Pro controller, it feels, in my opinion, heavier. It also feels bigger. Like, it's a good controller. It will still get by. The buttons have slightly more activation. This one feels clunkier to me. There's more resistance on the analog sticks. There's more activation for these buttons. But I would say that this is an okay controller. If you have been using it and if you still like it, you don't need to upgrade it. But I will say that this one will give you less fatigue over time. Granted, because of how little resistance the sticks have, the D-pad, the less activation for these buttons. So you will probably experience less fatigue as you are using this controller, especially for longer periods of gameplay. If you are playing for several hours, this controller just feels better. For intensive play, or even just casual play, like there's low resistance, so it just feels like a nicer upgrade. And that is what this is. This is an upgrade. You don't need to upgrade it, but if you do like to play games a lot, or if you do not have a controller, I would pick this up instead of picking this controller up. So I would definitely pick up the Switch 2 Pro Controller if you have not had a controller already. I would instead, or in addition to, prioritize getting a turbo controller. Any turbo controller will do, but I'm using an 8BitDo turbo controller for my shiny hunting purposes. But you can use any turbo controller. 8BitDo is just highly recommended for shiny hunting, just because it is a really reputable brand. You can do it wired or wireless, but it is really nice. But yeah, I would say that this is really nice. You should consider this as a controller to get for the Switch 2. Just even if you already have the Switch 1 Pro Controller, if you want like less fatigue as you're playing games. And I want to say that this gives you an edge in competitive play, just because of the slightly lower activation times. And of course, the less fatigue. But yeah, I would say that this controller is really good. But again, this does have the headset, so if you want to talk to your friends and you want to, for example, I don't know, play Fortnite on the couch and you want to talk to your friends, you can plug in like a headset here and they can still talk to your friends while playing on the couch. You can't do that with this controller. There's no slot for the headset. You could technically put like a Bluetooth mic into your Switch 2 and then still talk with your friends like when you're not close to the system. But this is just the easiest method to do that if you're playing like a game, like you want to communicate with them on the system instead of like using a third-party app or your phone. Oh, also, I forgot, one of the bigger draws to getting the Switch 2 Pro Controller is that, again, I did not want to press this before because you will wake up your Switch, but this, you can actually wake up your Switch with the Switch 2 Pro Controller. Switch 2, you can wake up your Switch 2 with the Switch 2 Pro Controller. This one will only wake up the Switch 1. This one, by default, since this cannot connect to the Switch 1, this one will only wake up the Switch 2. But if you do have your Switch like in an awkward location, or if you just want to be able to wake up your Switch while you're sitting on your bed or on the couch, and you don't want to get up and touch the power button to wake it up, you can just down press the home button on the Switch 2, and then it will wake up your Switch 2. But yeah, these are some notes about the Switch 1 Pro Controller, Switch 2 Pro Controller, and the SN Pro 2 controller. I didn't really review this controller as much, but that's not like the focus of this video. I honestly just like this mainly for the turbo, but these buttons also feel really nice too. But yeah, I would recommend this for shiny hunting or any purpose that you really need for a turbo button. Then you should get like an 8BitDo turbo controller. This one is just a straight upgrade from the Switch 1 Pro Controller, so if you don't really care for Pokemon Legends ZA and shiny hunting in that game specifically, or if you don't really need a turbo button for other purposes, then this is just a really nice controller to have, especially if you have not gotten the Switch 1 Pro Controller yet and you just want like a Pro Controller. This is, you know, probably the best one on the market right now for the Switch 2. It also has Amiibo support, so it has NFC function, just in case you do want to use Amiibos. This one also technically has NFC Amiibo function, because they are both OEM. These have the NFC function. This one the only real benefit I can think of getting the Switch 1 Pro Controller over the Switch 2 Pro Controller is if you still currently use a Switch 1 in addition to your Switch 2, and then you just want to get one controller, and then this way you can use this controller for both consoles. Or if you play, for example, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate competitively, or if you even play games at your friend's house, like your friend only has the Switch 1, this will connect to Switch 1 and Switch 2 consoles. So if you're in a tournament and then you're playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on Switch or Switch 2, this controller will work. Or if you're going to a friend's house, and whether they have Switch 1 or Switch 2, this controller will work. If you're going to a tournament and they only have Switch consoles, and they do not have Switch 2 consoles, then you are kind of screwed. And you cannot use this controller at that tournament because this will not connect to the Switch 1. If you're going to your friend's house, like they only have a Switch, then this controller will not work on the Switch. But I would say that these are the only differences, really. I would say pick this one up if you just want a nice upgrade over the Switch 1 Pro Controller, and or if you don't have a Pro Controller yet. I believe that this cannot connect to Switch 1. This one, I would say the biggest benefit is connecting to Switch 1 and Switch 2. But yeah, these are my opinions on the controllers. This one's definitely an upgrade. This one feels clunkier, heavier to me. This one is really good for turbo. But yeah, see y'all later.